The observation ship drifted in silence beyond Earth's moon, its hull barely visible against the darkness of space. Inside, Ambassador Velther watched the blue planet below with growing horror and fascination. His long fingers trembled as they touched the display showing another war unfolding on the surface. The third one this week. They never stop fighting, his assistant whispered, even their own kind. Velther had been fleeing for 6 months. The devouring swarm had consumed his home world 3 years ago, and now 47 star systems lay dead in its wake. The Velrin Empire, once proud and ancient, was dying. Every battle they fought ended in retreat. Every weapon they created proved useless against the endless tide of biomechanical horrors that ate planets whole. He had searched dozens of worlds for help. All refused. Most laughed at the Velrin's weakness. Some simply ran when they heard the swarm was coming. But Earth was different. Earth was violent. "Show me the tactical data again," Velther said. The screen changed. It showed human soldiers in a desert, moving through ruins. They wore primitive armor and carried chemical-based weapons that would make any civilized species laugh. But Velther did not laugh. He watched how they moved, how they communicated with simple gestures, how they adapted when ambushed. One human took a bullet to the chest. The armor stopped it. The human did not even slow down. He simply turned and fired back, his face calm behind the helmet visor. When his weapon ran empty, he pulled out a knife. A knife. In modern warfare. Insane, the assistant muttered. "No," Velther said slowly. "Survivors. They are survivors." High Curator Eason appeared on the communication screen, his face tight with stress. The military commander looked older each time Velther saw him. The war was consuming them all. "Report," Eason said. "Did you find anyone willing to help?" "Yes," Velther replied. "But you will not like it." He showed Eason the footage from Earth. The wars, the violence, the shocking creativity humans displayed in destroying each other. Eason watched in silence as humans used everything from nuclear weapons to simple rocks. They fought in the sky, underground, in water, and in the vacuum of space around their own planet. "They fight constantly," Velther explained. "They have been fighting for their entire recorded history. They have never known true peace. And they are very, very good at war." Eason stared at the screen. "They are primitives. Look at their technology. Their technology is irrelevant. Look at their tactics. Look at their will to fight. We have better weapons, better ships, better everything. And we are losing. They have worse everything. And they keep winning." A long silence filled the communication channel. Finally, Eason spoke. "Make contact. Offer them whatever they want. We have nothing left to lose." 2 weeks later, Velther stood in a military base in South Korea, surrounded by human soldiers pointing weapons at him. They looked so small compared to his kind, barely reaching his chest. But their eyes held something the Velrin had lost long ago. Hunger. The hunger to fight, to win, to survive. A woman stepped forward. She wore a crisp uniform with badges Velther's translator could not fully decode. Her black hair was pulled back tight, and her face showed no fear. None at all. "I am Colonel Hana," she said in a clear voice. "You have 60 seconds to explain why we should not shoot you as an invader." Velther had prepared a long speech about mutual cooperation and shared goals. He forgot it all. Instead, he showed her a single image. A Velrin child being consumed by the swarm. The woman's expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. "We are dying," Velther said simply. "We need soldiers. We will pay with technology, resources, and territory. We need people who know how to fight." Hana studied the image for a long moment. "What makes you think we will fight for you?" "Because you fight anyway. You fight each other over resources, over ideas, over old grudges. We are offering you a chance to fight for something that matters. To save billions of lives. To be heroes. Heroes, Hana repeated, as if tasting the word. How much territory? The negotiations took 3 days. Representatives from dozens of Earth nations crowded into the room, all wanting their share. Velthur offered technology that would advance Earth by centuries. Medical treatments that would eliminate disease. Energy sources that would solve their climate crisis. And land, 3 entire planets, empty and ready for colonization. In return, Earth would provide soldiers. Volunteers only, Velthur insisted. He did not want slaves or prisoners. He wanted warriors who chose to fight. Hana volunteered first. Within hours, 10,000 more followed. Within a week, the number reached 100,000. They came from every nation, every background. Some came for money. Some came for glory. Some came to escape their lives on Earth. Some came because they had nothing left to lose. Velthur watched them board the transport ships, carrying their primitive weapons and wearing modified Velrin armor. They looked so eager, so excited, like children going on an adventure. He felt something cold in his chest, a feeling his species had almost forgotten. Doubt. Are you certain about this? His assistant asked. Before Velthur could answer, Hana approached. Behind her walked a younger man carrying more weapons than seemed physically possible. Hana introduced him as Minho, her second in command. When do we start? Hana asked. The swarm is 3 systems away, Velthur said. We have 2 weeks to train you in our weapons and tactics. Minho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You can teach us your weapons, but we will teach you our tactics. High Curator Izin met the first human soldiers on the flagship. He towered over them, as all Velrin did. But when he looked into their eyes, he felt small. They studied him like predators, studying prey, measuring, calculating. One human, a young male named Taiyang, actually reached out and touched Isin's arm, testing the texture of his skin. Interesting, Taiyang said. Different bone structure. Weaker muscle density. You are built for peaceful worlds. And you? Isin asked. We are built for war, Taiyang replied. We are born into it, forged by it. We do not know anything else. The training period passed quickly. Velrin instructors tried to teach humans standard combat doctrine. The humans nodded politely and then did whatever they wanted. They modified every weapon given to them. They ignored safe operational procedures. They took risks that made Velrin commanders sick with fear, but they learned fast. Impossibly fast. When the transport ships jumped to the front line, Hana stood on the bridge next to Velthur, watching the stars streak past. She seemed calm, almost peaceful. Velthur envied that calm. He had not slept properly in months. Are you afraid? Velthur asked. Hana turned to him. Always. Fear keeps you alive. But I do not let it control me. The swarm has destroyed civilizations that were thousands of years older than yours. They have weapons you cannot imagine. They do not feel pain or fear or mercy. Neither do we, Hana said quietly. Not when it matters. The ship dropped from faster-than-light travel. Before them, a Velrin colony burned. The swarm had arrived 3 days ago. Millions were already dead. The remaining defenders were fighting a losing battle, trying to evacuate civilians. Hana opened the communication channel to her forces. Reaper Unit, this is Hana. We go in fast and hard. Make them remember us. Make them fear us. Show them what humans can do. The response came back as a roar. 100,000 voices screaming for battle. Velthur watched the drop pods launch, carrying humans toward the hell below. He had invited them here. He had given them weapons and pointed them at the enemy. As the pods descended through fire and smoke, Velthur wondered if he had just saved his people or doomed them. The first battle lasted 18 hours. When the smoke cleared, the swarm was retreating. Velther could barely believe the reports. In 3 years of war, the swarm had never retreated from anything. Hana's drop pod had landed directly in the middle of the swarm's advance. Military doctrine said this was suicide. Hana called it aggressive insertion. Her unit hit the ground running, firing weapons in all directions, using the confusion to establish a perimeter. Within minutes, they had turned the landing zone into a fortress made of dead swarm bodies and destroyed vehicles. The Valoran defenders had been retreating for days, exhausted and demoralized. Then they heard the humans coming. The sound was unlike anything they had experienced. Humans shouted as they fought. They screamed war cries in dozens of languages. They sang songs. They laughed when they should have been terrified. Yuna, the combat medic, worked frantically as wounded soldiers came through her station. She had trained for this. 6 months of intensive medical education compressed into her brain through Valoran neural technology. She knew how to treat both human and Valoran injuries now. But nothing had prepared her for what she was seeing. "This one has 3 broken ribs and a punctured lung," she called out to her assistant. "He should be in surgery." The soldier, a man named Tai Yang, pushed her hands away. "Tape it up. Give me something for the pain. I need to get back out there. You cannot fight with a punctured lung. Watch me." Yuna did tape it up. She gave him combat drugs that would keep him functional for another 6 hours. She watched him grab his weapon and run back toward the sound of gunfire, moving like his body was not held together by medical foam and stimulants. She made a note in her log. Patient refuses treatment. Patient returning to combat against medical advice. Patient laughing. Why was he laughing? Researcher Kolvith watched the battle through monitoring equipment, studying the human brain activity. The data made no sense. When humans encountered danger, their brains released chemicals: adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine. The combination should have caused panic or paralysis. Instead, it seemed to make them faster, stronger, more focused. But there was something else. Something his equipment kept flagging as abnormal. When humans overcame a threat, when they survived a near-death experience, their brains released pleasure chemicals. They were enjoying this. Not despite the fear, but because of it. Kolvith wrote in his report, "Human neurochemistry appears designed for extreme stress environments. They do not merely endure danger, they thrive in it." The battle ended when the swarm simply stopped advancing and pulled back. Valoran commanders celebrated. Hana stood among the ruins, covered in blood and burns, and felt empty. The fight was over too soon. She needed more. No, not needed. Wanted. She wanted more. Mino found her staring at the horizon where the swarm had vanished. "Good fight," he said. "Too short. There will be more." He said it like a promise. Hana looked at him and saw the same hunger in his eyes that she felt growing in her chest. The same need. They had tasted victory, and it was addictive. Over the next 3 months, human forces pushed deeper into swarm territory. Each battle brought new victories. The Valoran could not understand how. The humans had inferior armor, weaker shields, and slower ships. But they won anyway. They won because they fought dirty. They set traps that no honorable species would consider. They used the swarm's own biology against it, studying how it spread and then poisoning the very planets it tried to consume. They took risks that made Valoran commanders refuse to watch the battle feeds in one engagement. Taiyang's squad was surrounded. Standard protocol was to call for evacuation. Taiyang instead ordered his people to rig all their explosives to a single detonator. Then they charged directly into the swarm center, drawing thousands of creatures to their position. At the last second, they activated personal shields and triggered the explosion. The blast killed everything within 2 kilometers, except the humans, who emerged from the crater laughing and requesting immediate resupply. Yuna treated Taiyang again. More broken bones, severe burns, internal bleeding. "You are going to die if you keep fighting like this," she told him. "Maybe," Taiyang agreed. "But what a way to go." She studied his face. His pupils were dilated. His heart rate was elevated even at rest. His hands trembled slightly when not holding a weapon. She had seen these symptoms before in her medical training on Earth. Addiction. "You are addicted to combat," she said quietly. Taiyang's smile faded. "Is that a problem?" "It will be. When the war ends, then I hope the war never ends." He was not joking. Yuna started keeping detailed logs of all the human soldiers. The pattern was consistent. The longer they fought, the more they needed to fight. They volunteered for dangerous missions. They took unnecessary risks. Some even seemed disappointed when battles ended quickly. The Velrin had given them purpose and direction for their violence. But what would happen when that purpose was gone? A new transport arrived from Earth, carrying fresh recruits. Among them was Daeyun, Hana's younger brother. She had not seen him in 2 years. He looked so young, so eager. He reminded her of how she had felt when she first arrived. Before the battles, before the blood, before the hunger. "I am here to fight beside you," Daeyun said, grinning. "They say you are a legend. Reaper unit has the highest kill count in the entire human forces." Hannah embraced him but felt cold inside. She did not want him here. This place changed people. It was changing her. She could feel it happening, like rust spreading through metal. Each battle made her harder, colder, more willing to do terrible things for victory. "Stay close to me," she told him. "Do exactly what I say. This is not like the training simulations." "I know. It is real." Daeyun's eyes shone with excitement. "Real. Yes, too real. Hi." Curator Isensen reviewed the latest battle reports in his private chamber. The numbers were extraordinary. Human forces had achieved in months what Velrin armies could not accomplish in years. The swarm was in full retreat across 7 sectors. Some swarm elements had even abandoned planets they had already consumed, fleeing from human advance teams. But the reports that truly troubled Isensen were the classified ones. The psychological evaluations, the incident reports, the recordings of human communications during battle. He played one now. 2 human soldiers pinned down under heavy fire, their position about to be overrun. "This is it," one said. "Yeah," the other replied. "You scared?" "Terrified. You?" "Same. Want to run?" "No, me neither. Let us kill as many as we can." They had laughed as they prepared to die. And then they had not died. They had somehow survived and killed everything that attacked them. The recording ended with them cheering like children. Isensen opened another file. This one was from Kolvith, the researcher studying human biology. The report's title was simple: Threat Assessment, Humanity. He read it 3 times. Then he read it again. Each time, the conclusion remained the same. Humans were not merely good at fighting. They were designed for it. Their evolution had shaped them into perfect predators. Pack hunters with tool-using intelligence and adaptable tactics. They were persistence predators, capable of chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They were ambush predators, capable of waiting for hours without moving. They were opportunistic scavengers, capable of eating almost anything to survive. And most terrifying of all, they enjoyed the hunt. Their brains rewarded them for violence, for overcoming danger, for winning. Kolvith had written, "The Velrin evolved on a peaceful world with abundant resources. We developed intelligence to build and create. Humans evolved on a death world, competing with thousands of other predator species. They developed intelligence to hunt and kill more effectively. We are farmers who learn to fight. They are warriors who learn to farm. The report's final line made Easenson close the file and stare at his hands for a long time. Recommendation: immediate cessation of human military integration. If ignored, recommend contingency plans for human containment post-war. We have not hired soldiers. We have armed predators. But it was too late. Easenson knew it was too late. They needed the humans. The swarm was still out there, still dangerous. Without human forces, the Velrin would lose. With human forces, they would win. But what came after victory? Minho sat in the strategy room with other human commanders, looking at star maps. The swarm controlled 12 systems now, down from 50. Victory was close. Another 6 months, maybe less. What happens when we win? Someone asked. We go home, another replied. Back to Earth. Minho said nothing. He had no home to return to. None of them did, not really. Earth did not want them back. Earth had sent its warriors away because warriors were dangerous in peacetime. Earth had exported its violence to the stars. He looked at the map, at all the empty systems the swarm had consumed. Empty planets. Empty worlds, waiting for someone to claim them. Maybe we do not go home, Minho said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what he meant. Everyone had thought it. No one had said it aloud until now. Far away, in the deepest part of swarm territory, something strange happened. The swarm's hive consciousness, distributed across 1 billion organisms, made a decision. For the first time in its existence, it chose to flee not because of weapons or technology, but because of fear. It had encountered something worse than itself. Something that killed not just to survive, but because killing made it stronger. A species that turned war into art and death into victory. The swarm sent a message through quantum channels, broadcasting to all its scattered elements. New apex predator detected. Threat level, extinction. Recommend full retreat from all engagement zones. But no one intercepted the message. No one knew the swarm could feel fear. They would not learn this until much later, when it was far too late to matter. The war was ending. Everyone could feel it. The swarm's attacks had become desperate, disorganized. Where once it had advanced with calculated precision, now it simply fled. Human forces pursued it system by system, world by world, until only 3 planets remained under swarm control. ECL worked in intelligence, analyzing communications and troop movements. She was good at her job, perhaps too good. She noticed patterns others missed, connections hidden in the data. And lately, the patterns troubled her. She sat in her small office aboard the command carrier, staring at personnel files. Every human soldier had one. Name, age, background, reason for volunteering. Standard information. But Eziel had started cross-referencing the files with Earth databases. And what she found made her hands shake. Private Chunho had volunteered from Seoul. His file said he was a businessman seeking adventure. Earth records said he had been under investigation for human trafficking before he volunteered. The investigation had closed the day he left Earth. Corporal Minseo, a talented sniper. Her file said she was a competitive shooter looking for a challenge. Earth records said she had killed 3 people in a bar fight and disappeared before trial. The pattern repeated across thousands of files. War criminals. Violent offenders. Career soldiers with dishonorable discharges. Corporate enforcers. Gang members, mercenaries. Earth had not sent its heroes. It had sent its monsters and called them volunteers. Eziel brought her findings to Hana. They met in private, away from monitoring systems. Have you seen this? Isiel asked, showing her the data. Hannah looked at the files without expression. Yes? You knew? I suspected. Does it matter? They fight well. It matters because we were lied to. The Velarin think we are heroes. Earth thinks we are trash they exported to the stars. Isiel's voice cracked. What does that make us? Hannah was quiet for a long moment. It makes us useful. Nothing more. But Isiel saw something in Hannah's eyes. Doubt, shame, maybe even anger. Hannah had believed in this mission once. She had thought they were saving lives, being noble. Now she knew the truth. They were weapons. Disposable weapons. Admiral Hyan, the highest-ranking human officer, arrived on the command carrier for a strategic meeting. He was older than most soldiers, gray-haired and dignified. He smiled often and spoke of honor and duty. Isiel did not trust him. She followed him after the meeting, staying in the shadows. He went to a secure communication room and activated a private channel to Earth. Isiel activated her monitoring equipment. Illegal but necessary. The swarm will be eliminated within 60 days, Hyan reported. All human forces are in position. Velarin defenses are concentrated at the front line. Their core systems are vulnerable. A voice from Earth responded. Excellent. Maintain the timeline. Corporate partners are ready to begin Phase 2. How many colonists can we move through? 5 million in the first wave. More once we secure the infrastructure. Colonists. Not soldiers. Colonists. Isiel's blood turned cold. She found Hannah again, showed her the recording. This time, Hannah's expression changed. A mask cracked, and beneath it was something fierce and dangerous. They planned this from the beginning, Hannah said slowly. Earth never intended us to leave. They are using the war as cover for invasion. What do we do? I do not know. Yuna's medical station had become a confessional. Soldiers came to her not just for physical treatment, but to talk. They trusted her because she listened without judgment. Taiyang came often, even when he was not injured. I cannot go back, he told her one night. Earth does not want people like me. I have done things here that would get me executed back home. War crimes, they would call them. But here, they give me medals. What did you do? Yuna asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know. What needed to be done? What everyone else was too afraid to do. He looked at his hands. The swarm does not take prisoners. So we learned not to take prisoners either, even when they tried to surrender. The swarm cannot surrender. They are a hive mind, not the swarm, the Velarin. Yuna felt sick. What? Sometimes Velarin civilians get in the way. Sometimes they question our tactics. Sometimes they see things they should not see. Taiyang's voice was flat, empty. Admiral Hyan says loose ends are dangerous. So we tie them up. Yuna wanted to report this. She wanted to scream. But who would she tell? The Velarin commanders who depended on human forces to win their war. Admiral Hyan, who apparently ordered the killings. Earth, which had sent criminals to do exactly this kind of work. She simply made another note in her log. The truth, recorded in digital ink. Maybe someday it would matter. NAR. I was a Velarin peace activist. She had opposed the war from the beginning, arguing that violence only created more violence. No one had listened to her then. She had been called a coward, a traitor. Now she stood before the Velarin Council, trying to make them listen. The humans are not leaving, she said. They are establishing permanent bases in systems we liberated. They are bringing more of their kind from Earth. This is not cooperation. This is occupation. The council members looked uncomfortable. High Curator Izazin was notably absent. The humans saved us, one council member said. We owe them gratitude. We hired them, Nari corrected. We paid them. We owe them nothing more. But they are taking everything. You are being paranoid. Am I? Then why are human forces surrounding our capital world? Why have they refused to stand down after the last sworn stronghold fell? Why are they building weapons in our shipyards? No one had answers. Or perhaps they had answers and did not want to admit them. Junho had been a corporate executive on Earth. He had made millions through questionable means and lost it all when his company collapsed. The military had seemed like a fresh start, a chance to rebuild. But Junho was always thinking ahead. He had started a side business, smuggling goods between human and Velran forces. Small things at first. Earth luxuries the soldiers missed. Then weapons. Then people. There was money in moving things quietly, money no one reported or taxed. By the time the war was ending, Junho controlled a network that spanned 12 systems. He met with Minho in a cargo bay, discussing their next shipment. 5,000 more from Earth, Junho said. They are calling them colonists, but they are soldiers. Private contractors. The corporations are building their own armies. Why? Minho asked. Because governments are slow and careful. Corporations are fast and ruthless. They see opportunity here. Empty planets. Weak defenders. Advanced technology ready to be taken. Earth is overcrowded and dying. These worlds are paradise. All we have to do is take them. Minho looked at the manifest. 5,000 now. 10,000 next month. 100,000 by year's end. An invasion disguised as immigration. Where do we fit in this? Minho asked. Wherever we choose. We are already here. We know the territory. We have the respect of the troops. When the corporations come, we can be their enemies or their partners. Junho smiled. I prefer being a partner. Minho thought of Hana. She would never accept this. She still believed in honor, in doing the right thing. That belief would get her killed. Daeyun was young and still believed in heroes. He followed Hana everywhere, learning from her, trusting her completely. So when she took him aside and told him what she had discovered, he refused to believe it. Earth would not do this, he said. We came to help. We came because Earth paid us and wanted us gone. Now they are using us to steal these worlds. No, you are wrong. Hana showed him the evidence. The files. The recordings. The truth. Daeyun read it all, and something broke inside him. The world he thought he understood dissolved into lies and manipulation. What do we do? He asked. I am still deciding. That night, Daeyun could not sleep. He walked the corridors of the ship, trying to make sense of everything. He did not notice he was being followed until strong hands grabbed him and pulled him into an empty room. Minho stood there, along with 2 other soldiers Daeyun did not recognize. You know too much, Minho said sadly. Hana is my friend, but she talks too much, trusts too much. And you are her weakness. What are you doing? What needs to be done? They found Daeyun's body the next morning. Equipment malfunction, the report said. A tragic accident during routine maintenance. Hana held his cold hand and knew exactly what had happened. Knew who had done it. Knew why she did not cry. She had no tears left. Instead, she felt something harder than grief settle into her chest. Purpose. Cold, clear purpose. The last swarm hive node was located deep underground on a frozen world. Human and Velran forces surrounded it. Admiral Hyan gave a speech about victory and sacrifice, about how they had saved the galaxy together, about new beginnings and lasting friendship. Hana watched him speak and wanted to put a bullet in his head. The final assault began. It was almost too easy. The swarm barely fought back. It simply died, its last organisms collapsing as the hive node was destroyed. Across the galaxy, the remaining swarm elements went silent, dormant without their central consciousness. The war was over. Valoran forces celebrated. They had survived. They had won. Their civilization would continue. Human forces did not celebrate. They checked their weapons. They reinforced their positions. They waited for new orders. Those orders came within hours. Admiral Hyan's voice echoed across all human channels. All units maintain current positions. Do not, repeat, do not stand down. We are implementing security protocols to ensure peace. Any Valoran resistance is to be met with appropriate force. Appropriate force. Everyone knew what that meant. High Curator Izen sat alone in his quarters, listening to reports of human forces taking control of key installations across Valoran space. Listening to his own commanders asking what to do, how to respond, whether to fight back. He thought of Velther's first message so long ago. We found soldiers. They had not found soldiers. They had found something else. Something that knew only war and conquest. Something that would not stop just because the enemy was defeated. Izzison opened a secure channel. One that broadcast far beyond Valoran space. Into the dark between stars, where other civilizations waited and watched. This is High Curator Izzison of the Valoran Empire, he said into the void. This is a warning to anyone listening. Do not contact Earth. Do not seek their help. Do not trust their promises. We made that mistake. We thought we were hiring soldiers. We were wrong. We invited predators into our home and gave them weapons. Now they will not leave. Now they are taking everything. He paused, wondering if anyone would hear, if anyone would care. We were given a weapon called human, Izzison continued, and that weapon has turned on us. 3 weeks after the swarm's defeat, human forces controlled 15 Valoran systems. They called it peacekeeping. The Valoran called it occupation. Both were right. Kong had been a soldier once, back on Earth. He had fought in 3 wars and earned medals he never wore. When the Valoran recruited him, he had seen it as a chance to do something meaningful, to be a hero instead of just another killer. Now he realized how foolish that had been. He stood in the ruins of a Valoran city, watching human soldiers patrol streets that were not theirs. Watching Valoran civilians hurry past with their heads down, afraid. This was not liberation. This was conquest. We need to do something, his friend Hera said beside him. She was younger, barely 20, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. What can we do? Kong asked. We are just soldiers. We are humans. That means something here. Other humans will listen to us. Kong was not so sure. But he was tired of doing nothing. They started small. Quiet conversations with other soldiers who felt wrong about what was happening. People who had come to fight the swarm, not occupy the Valoran. People who still remembered what honor meant. The resistance grew slowly. 50 soldiers. Then 100. Then 500. Not enough to fight Admiral Hyan's loyalists, but enough to make a difference. Maybe. Minji was a Valoran military officer, one of the few who had survived the war with her rank intact. She had fought alongside humans, respected their abilities, even called some of them friends. Now those friends pointed guns at her people and told her it was for her own protection. You must understand, Admiral Hyan told her during a meeting. The swarm is defeated, but other threats exist. Rogue elements, pirates, unstable governments. We are here to provide security. We do not need your security, Minji replied. We need you to leave. That is not possible. Contracts were signed. Agreements were made. Under duress. During war. Those agreements are void. Hyan's expression hardened. Careful, Commander. Void contracts mean void protections. If we are not your allies, then what are we? The threat was clear. Minji left the meeting knowing her people had two choices, submit or die. She chose neither. She began organizing Velrin resistance cells, teaching her people tactics they had never needed before. Guerrilla warfare, sabotage, insurgency. The humans had been excellent teachers. Director Voss arrived from Earth with the first wave of official colonists. He was a corporate intelligence chief, polished and professional. He called it expansion. He called it opportunity. He called it humanity's destiny. Hana met him in a conference room that had belonged to the Valorant Council until 3 days ago. Voss sat in what had been the High Curator's chair, feet up on the ancient wooden table. "You seem troubled," Voss said to Hana. "Is something wrong?" "Everything is wrong. This was not the mission. We were supposed to fight the swarm. And you did? Brilliantly. Now comes the next phase. Invasion." Voss laughed. "Such an ugly word. Think of it as aggressive immigration. Earth is dying, Colonel. 9 billion people on a planet that can barely support 3 billion. Resources depleted. Climate collapsing. Governments failing. We needed a way out. So you used us. Turned us into your weapon. You were always weapons. We just pointed you in the right direction." Voss leaned forward. The Velrin had dozens of habitable worlds and could not defend them. The swarm would have taken everything if we had not intervened. We saved them. Now we are taking payment. They will resist. Let them. Velrin evolved on peaceful worlds. Humans evolved on Earth. There is no contest. Hannah wanted to argue, but Voss was right. That was what made it so terrible. Humans were better at violence, better at war, better at taking what they wanted. Evolution had shaped them into perfect conquerors. Era found Hana that evening. They had been close during the war, almost like mother and daughter. Era had learned everything from Hana: tactics, discipline, survival. Now she needed to learn something else. "I am joining Kong's resistance," Era said. Hana closed her eyes. "That is suicide. Maybe, but it is right. Right does not matter in war. Only victory matters. You taught me to fight with honor." "I taught you wrong," Hana said bitterly. "There is no honor in what we do. We are killers, occupiers, everything I tried not to be." Era knelt beside Hana's chair. "Then help us change that. You are Hana. You are Reaper. Everyone respects you. If you stand with us, others will follow." Hana looked at this young woman who still believed in heroes, who still thought one person could make a difference. It was foolish. It was naive. It was everything Hana had lost. "Give me time," Hana said finally. "I need to think." But there was no time. Events were moving too fast. Yuna's medical logs had been leaked. Someone, she never learned who, had hacked her secure files and broadcast them across every communication channel in Velrin space. Detailed accounts of human war crimes, civilian casualties, deliberate targeting of non-combatants, torture, executions. The logs spread like fire. Velrin civilians who had seen humans as saviors now saw them as monsters. Velrin soldiers who had held back from resistance now armed themselves. Even other humans, those who had not known the full extent of what was being done in their name, began questioning their orders. Director Voss ordered Yuna arrested, but she had already gone into hiding. From her safe house, she continued broadcasting, telling the truth that everyone had tried to bury. "We came here as soldiers," one of her messages said, "but we stayed as conquerors. And I will not be silent anymore." The occupation tightened. Admiral Hyan declared martial law in all human-controlled systems. Valoran civilians were subject to curfews and random searches. Anyone resisting was arrested or killed. The Valoran called it genocide. Hyan called it necessary measures. Minji's resistance struck back. They destroyed supply depots, sabotaged communications, assassinated collaborators. The Valoran were learning to fight dirty, and humans died for it. Not many, not yet, but enough to make Admiral Hyan paranoid. He increased security. More soldiers on patrol. More checkpoints. More violence. The galaxy watched. Other alien civilizations saw what was happening and remembered High Curator Isen's warning. Do not contact Earth. Do not trust them. Do not give them an opening. Some civilizations closed their borders. Some prepared defenses. Some simply fled to deeper space, away from this terrifying new species that conquered even those it claimed to help. Kong's resistance had grown to 3,000 soldiers now. A tiny fraction of the human forces, but significant. They could not win a direct confrontation, but they could disrupt, sabotage, make the occupation costly. They met in secret locations, moving constantly to avoid detection. Kong stood before them, looking at faces that ranged from teenage to elderly. Soldiers and civilians. Humans and Valoran working together, united by a simple goal: freedom. We cannot beat them in open war, Kong said, but we can make them bleed. Every supply convoy we destroy is supplies they do not have. Every communication hub we disable is intelligence they cannot gather. Every collaborator we remove is one less person enabling this occupation. They will hunt us, someone said. Let them. Hunting us means they are not oppressing civilians. Chasing us means they are not expanding. We become the target so others can escape. It was a terrible plan. It meant sacrifice. It meant death. Everyone knew it. Everyone volunteered anyway. Era led her first mission 3 days later. A supply depot on the edge of a human-controlled city. Light security, valuable cargo. Perfect for a fast strike. Her team moved in darkness, avoiding patrols, using terrain for cover. Everything Hana had taught her. They reached the depot, placed their explosives, and were retreating when someone triggered an alarm. Lights blazed. Soldiers poured out. Gunfire erupted. Era's team scattered, but 2 did not make it. She heard them scream, heard them die, and kept running, because stopping meant joining them. She reached the fallback position and detonated the explosives remotely. The depot exploded in a fireball that lit up the night sky. Secondary explosions followed as ammunition cooked off. The blast killed everyone still inside, human and Valoran both. Era vomited in the bushes, shaking. She had killed people. Not swarm creatures, not faceless enemies. People, humans. Kong found her there. First time is always hardest. Does it get easier? No, but you learn to live with it. Hannah heard about the attack. She knew Era's tactics, recognized her style. She also knew Admiral Hyan would respond with overwhelming force. The resistance had drawn blood. Now Hyan would make them pay. The reprisal came at dawn. Human forces surrounded a Valoran residential sector suspected of harboring resistance members. They gave everyone 10 minutes to evacuate. Then they leveled the entire sector with artillery. 3,000 Valoran civilians died. No resistance members were among them. Hyan broadcasted a message. This is the cost of resistance. Every attack against human forces will be met with proportional response. Choose wisely. Proportional. 3,000 civilians for a supply depot. Hannah made her decision. She found Kong in one of his safe houses, Era beside him. They both tensed when she entered, unsure if she was there to arrest them or join them. I am in, Hannah said simply. Tell me what you need. Kong smiled for the first time in weeks. We need someone who can get close to Admiral Hyan, someone he trusts. He trusts no one. Then someone he thinks he has controlled. Someone who seems broken. Hannah understood. You want me to pretend to surrender. I want you to get close enough to put a bullet in his head. It was an assassination mission. It was probably suicide. It would make Hannah a traitor to humanity and a murderer to anyone who did not know the full truth. When do I start? Hannah asked, not far away, on a hidden station at the edge of Velarin space. Elder Soyan studied ancient records that few knew existed. She was old even by Velarin standards, her skin wrinkled like aged paper, her eyes dim but sharp. She had lived through the Swarm War. She had lived 3 other wars before that. And she had read histories going back 10,000 years. The records spoke of another time, another desperate civilization that had sought help from a primitive world. The planet had no name in the records, only coordinates. But the description matched. A violent world, a species constantly at war with itself, incredible adaptability. That civilization had hired soldiers from this world. Those soldiers had won the war. Then they had refused to leave. Within 2 generations, the original civilization was gone, absorbed into the warrior species. Their technology, their culture, their very genes diluted and consumed. The name of the warrior species was written in characters Elder Soyan barely recognized. But she knew what it meant. It meant human. They had done this before. 1,000 years ago, humans had conquered another species, the same way they were conquering the Velarin now. And no one had remembered. No one had kept records. No one had warned the Velarin. Elder Soyan began writing her own warning, knowing it would probably arrive too late. But someone needed to remember. Someone needed to know. We were given a weapon called human, she wrote, and that weapon consumed us. May the next civilization learn from our mistake. May they survive where we did not. She broadcast her message into deep space, toward civilizations that might encounter humanity in centuries to come. A warning, a memorial, a gravestone for a species that had saved itself, only to be destroyed by its savior Dot in his command center. Admiral Hyan reviewed reports of increasing resistance activity. It troubled him less than it should have. Let them resist. Let them fight. It gave him excuse to tighten control, to justify permanent military presence, to make the occupation absolute. Earth needed these worlds. Humanity needed room to grow. And if the Velarin had to suffer for that, well, such was the price of expansion. History would remember him as the man who secured humanity's future among the stars. He did not see the knife until it was too late. Did not suspect the loyal soldier who had requested private audience. Did not know that Hannah had already decided his fate, but that would come later. First, she had to get close. First, she had to make him believe she had broken. The game was just beginning. Hannah played her role perfectly. She approached Admiral Hyan with her head bowed, her voice quiet. She told him she was tired of fighting her own kind, tired of watching humans die for Velarin resistance. She wanted to serve humanity's true interests, not waste her life on idealistic rebellion. Hyan studied her carefully. You were close to the resistance. Kong trusts you. Era looks up to you. I know where they hide. I know their supply routes. I know their next 3 targets. Hannah met his eyes. Let me prove my loyalty. Why should I trust you? Because you killed my brother. Because you showed me that mercy is weakness. Because I finally understand that we are not here to help the Velarin. We are here to replace them. Hyan smiled. He believed her. Or perhaps he simply wanted to believe. Either way, he gave her access, brought her into his inner circle, made her part of his personal security detail. She was exactly where she needed to be. Kong received Hannah's intel through encrypted channels. She was feeding him real information, but carefully selected. Targets that would hurt the occupation without triggering massive reprisals. Supply lines that could be disrupted without civilian casualties. It was a careful balance, walking between two worlds, trusted by neither side completely. How long can she maintain this? Era asked Kong. As long as it takes. As long as she stays alive. And when Hyan discovers the truth, then she dies. And we lose our best chance to end this without destroying everything. The resistance was growing. Not just hundreds now, but thousands. Humans who remembered why they had come here. Velarin who refused to surrender their worlds. Even some of the newer arrivals from Earth, colonists who had been promised paradise and found occupation instead. They needed a symbol. A victory that would prove resistance was possible. Kong had been planning it for weeks, and now the pieces were falling into place. The portal station. The massive structure in orbit around the Velarin capital world that connected their space to Earth. As long as it existed, more humans would keep coming. More soldiers, more colonists, more occupation. Destroying it would cut off reinforcements and strand both sides in Velarin space. It was a suicide mission. The station was heavily defended. But Yuna had analyzed the schematics and found a weakness. One small engineering access port that led directly to the main reactor. If someone could reach it, plant enough explosives, they could trigger a chain reaction that would tear the station apart. I will do it, Yuna said when Kong outlined the plan. I am already wanted. I have nothing left to lose. You have everything to lose. Your life. My life stopped mattering when I chose to speak the truth. Yuna's voice was steady. Let me do this. Let me make my death count for something. Minji contributed Velarin ships and pilots. They would create a diversion, draw away the station's defenses long enough for Yuna's team to slip through. It would cost lives. Many lives. But if they succeeded, it might save millions more. Hyun Woo was Kong's son, barely 16 years old. He had been born after Kong left Earth, raised by a mother who died young, and sent to the Velarin systems to find his father. Kong had not known he existed until the boy appeared in a refugee camp. Carrying nothing but a photo and hope, Dao Hyunwoo helped maintain resistance equipment. Too young to fight, but old enough to understand what they were fighting for. He watched the adults plan their missions and wished he could do more. When I am older, he told his father, I will fight beside you. Kong hoped the war would be over before then. Hoped his son would never have to kill. Hoped he was building a world where children could be children, not soldiers. Director Voss suspected something was wrong. Intelligence reports showed increased resistance activity, but the attacks were too precise, too well informed. Someone was feeding them information from inside his organization. He ordered security sweeps, loyalty tests, surveillance on anyone who had shown sympathy for the Velarin. The net was tightening. Eventually, it would catch Hanadat. She knew this. She accepted it. But first, she had one more mission. Ambassador Velther had disappeared months ago, presumably into hiding. But Hannah knew where he was. A small monastery in the mountains, where he worked helping Velarin refugees. She found him there, older and sadder than she remembered. I am sorry, Velther said when he saw her. I brought your people here. I did this. You were trying to save your people. I understand that. I should have found another way. Should have known what would happen. He looked at her with ancient eyes. What will you do now? Something terrible. Something necessary. Hana explained the plan to destroy the portal. After that, we are trapped here. All of us. Humans and Velarin together. We will have to find a way to coexist. Or destroy each other. Maybe. But at least no more humans will come. No more occupation. Just the people already here, forced to make peace or die together. Velther was silent for a long moment. You would sacrifice your connection to Earth? Earth abandoned us, sent us here to be its weapon, and never planned to take us back. I would rather be trapped in Valoran space, with a chance at redemption, than connected to Earth and continuing this genocide. You are a strange human, Hana. I am a human who remembers what honor means. There are not many of us left. The plan went into motion 3 days later. Minji's ships attacked a military convoy on the far side of the system, drawing Admiral Hyan's attention and forces. It looked like a major offensive, the resistance finally getting bold. Hyan took the bait. He sent everything he had, determined to crush the resistance once and for all. While the battle raged, Yuna's team approached the portal station in a stolen cargo ship. Security was lighter than usual. Most forces deployed to the fight. They docked at the engineering port exactly as planned. Then everything went wrong. Minho had suspected Hana from the beginning. He had watched her too closely, noticed the small tells, the slight delays in her reports. He had not said anything, waiting to see what she was planning. When the attack on the convoy began, he understood. He was waiting at the portal station with a full security team. When Yuna's cargo ship docked, the firefight was brutal and fast. Yuna's team fought desperately, knowing they had seconds before reinforcements arrived. Half of them died in the first exchange. The others pushed forward, dragging the explosives toward the reactor access. Yuna faced Minho across a corridor filled with smoke and bodies. "You do not have to do this," she said. "You can let us end this war. The war is already over. We won. What you are doing is treason. What you are doing is genocide. It is survival. Humanity's survival. And I will not let you destroy that for some misguided sense of morality." They fired simultaneously. Minho's shot hit Yuna in the chest, punching through her armor. Yuna's shot hit Minho in the shoulder, spinning him around. Yuna fell, feeling her life bleed out onto the cold metal floor. But she had bought enough time. Her teammates reached the reactor, placed the charges, activated the timer. 30 seconds. Minho tried to reach them, but his wounded shoulder would not cooperate. He screamed orders into his communicator, demanded the charges be disarmed, called for Hyan. 20 seconds. Hana heard the distress call. She was with Hyan in his command ship, watching the battle, waiting for her moment. But now there was no time for subtlety. She drew her sidearm and shot the 2 guards, standing behind Hyan, before anyone could react. She had her weapon pressed against the Admiral's head. "Order your forces to stand down," Hana said. "Order them to evacuate the portal station, now." Hyan laughed. "You think killing me will change anything? There are a dozen officers ready to replace me. Hundreds more on Earth. You are one woman with a gun. You cannot stop this. I am not trying to stop all of it. Just this. Just you." 10 seconds. Hyan reached for his own weapon. Hana pulled the trigger. The Admiral's body crumpled to the floor, his blood spreading across the command center's pristine white floor. Alarms shrieked. Security personnel rushed in. Hana did not run. She stood over Hyan's body, weapon lowered, and waited. 0. The portal station exploded. Not all at once, but in a cascading series of detonations as the reactor breached and ignited the fuel stores. The massive structure tore itself apart, scattering debris across orbital space. The portal itself, the connection to Earth, collapsed into a dimensional singularity that winked out of existence. Everyone in the command center stopped and stared at the screens showing the destruction. Billions of credits of infrastructure. Humanity's only reliable connection to this sector of space. Gone. Hana smiled sadly. Now we are all trapped here together. Now we have to find another way. Security personnel arrested her. They beat her, questioned her, prepared to execute her. But word of what had happened was spreading. The portal was gone. Earth could send no more reinforcements. The occupation was essentially frozen in place. Finite resources, finite soldiers. Some humans celebrated. Some raged. Many simply did not know what to feel. Kong's resistance seized the moment of confusion. They broadcast Yuna's medical logs again, showed the evidence of war crimes, demanded trials for those responsible. They called for peace talks, for power sharing, for justice. Director Vess tried to maintain control, but his authority was fracturing. Without the threat of Earth reinforcements, without Admiral Hyon's iron command, the occupation was falling apart. Minji represented the Velrin in the first peace talks. Kong represented the human resistance. Era attended as witness and recorder, making sure everything was documented, that the truth would not be buried again. They negotiated for 6 days straight. The terms were harsh on both sides. Humans would keep 3 systems, the planets furthest from Velrin core territories. They would have autonomy, but limited military capability. War criminals would face trial, both human and Velrin. Technology would be shared equally. Occupation forces would withdraw to the designated human systems within 1 year. It was not perfect. It was not even fair. But it was peace. Or at least the possibility of peace. Hana was released as part of the peace agreement. She had killed Admiral Hyan, but she had also ended the war. Some called her a traitor. Some called her a hero. She called herself a murderer and accepted that burden. She found Era in a refugee camp, helping Velrin families rebuild. The young woman had survived the war, but carried scars both visible and hidden. What will you do now? Era asked. I do not know. Try to build something better than what we destroyed, I suppose. Hannah looked at the camp, at humans and Velrin working side by side. What about you? The same. Someone has to make sure we remember. Make sure this never happens again. They worked together for the next 5 years. Slowly, painfully, the 2 species learned to coexist. Humans brought their adaptability and drive. Velrin brought their wisdom and patience. Children were born who carried genes from both species, like Hingwu, who had fallen in love with a Velrin girl and created something entirely new. Elder Soyan lived long enough to see the first generation of hybrid children. She updated her warning to the stars, adding a final note. We were given a weapon called human. It nearly destroyed us. But perhaps destruction was not the only possibility. Perhaps, given time and determination, weapons can learn to be something else. Perhaps even humans can choose peace. Mino survived his wounds, but never recovered his position. He lived in one of the human systems, bitter and isolated, convinced they had surrendered instead of conquered. He was not alone in this belief. Thousands of humans felt the same, refugees from a war they thought they had won. Kong worried about them. Worried they would try again, would teach their children that the Velrin worlds were rightfully human. But all he could do was raise his own son to be better, to understand that strength without compassion was just brutality. 50 years after the portal's destruction, Hana was an old woman. She had helped negotiate treaties, establish schools where both species learned together, create systems of justice that applied equally to all. She sat in her small house, watching the sunset over mountains that belonged to no one and everyone. Era visited her often, now a leader in her own right, carrying forward the work they had started. Do you think we did the right thing? Era asked one evening. Hana considered the question. I think we did the only thing we could. We were monsters. We chose to try to be better. Some days we succeeded. Some days we failed. But we kept trying. Was it enough? I do not know. Ask me in another 50 years. But Hannah did not have 50 years. She died quietly in her sleep 3 months later. They buried her on a hill, overlooking both a human settlement and a Velrin city, her grave marked with words in both languages. She fought. She killed. She tried to make amends. Remember all three. The galaxy remembered. Issen's warning, Elder Soyan's records, and the stories passed down through generations made sure no one forgot what had happened in Valoran space. Other civilizations learned from their mistake. When humans eventually developed faster-than-light travel independently, centuries later, they found the entire galaxy closed to them. Every species knew the story. Every species had prepared defenses. Humanity had become legendary, but as a cautionary tale, not as heroes. And in Valoran space, in the systems where humans and Valoran had learned to coexist, the hybrid children grew up hearing stories of the war. Stories of Hana and Yuna and Kong. Stories of violence and redemption. Stories that ask the same question over and over. Are we defined by our worst actions or by our choice to overcome them? The answer changed depending on who you asked and when. But the question itself endured, passed from generation to generation, a reminder of what they had been and what they could choose to become. We were given a weapon called human, and that weapon learned, slowly and painfully, to be something more than just a weapon. Not perfect, not pure, but trying. Always trying. That would have to be enough.